All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. How are y'all? Hope everyone's good. Looks like I'm competing with the Chessable Chess Masters this morning. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'd rather watch them than me myself. So I just washed my hair and it's fluffy and wild and crazy. So I've got to wear this hat. I'm going to wear it backwards so that I can see stuff. We're going to do some traps and combinations today, but before we do, I had a guy in the chat last week recommend a book by Jinu Ban, The Tactics of Endgames. I just want you to know I take your suggestions seriously. I went ahead and got this book. I'm looking very forward to going through this book. It looks like a terrific endgame study. It looks like it's got some really good stuff. It's directly from many different games from people I have never seen. So I'm excited. This doesn't look like it's the ordinary run-of-the-mill stuff. Endgame is important. If it's one thing I'm learning in my training games, it's that my endgame is not nearly as strong as it needs to be just yet, and I'm working on it. I'm working on every aspect of my game. So, hey, welcome, everybody. Appreciate you showing up. Fun to see a few people awake on Saturday morning. It's snowing here last night. Last night, I came close to doing a live, and then I thought, wait a minute, Friday night, everybody's out on a date, and I had just come back from taking my wife out to dinner. We had Chinese, and that was delicious, man. That was fun. That's my problem. I eat too much. I've got to work on that. So let's say hi to everybody. Oh, what's his face? And Belaglavi sup. All right. It's evening in Serbia, is it? Well, thank you for joining us here in the morning here in America. So I found some really fun chess traps, and I get it. We're not supposed to play for chess traps, but it's good to be aware of the chess traps and how they work and why they arise. It is usually because we have opened bad or we've opened incorrectly, and that can get us into trouble. So this goes back to the old adage, learn your openings, and that is also what we are all in the process of doing. Let me show you this first chess trap that's really very fun to see. This is the Scotch Gambit. When the e4, e5 gets opened up, then the knight to f3 and the knight to c6. So all kinds of openings can arise from this. You can go to the Spanish, the Italian, whatever, to an irregular. He bumps the pawn to queen 4. So when he does this, the pawn will take the pawn. This is the old notation from Irving Chernev's book. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to share the good notation with the new algebraic new notation, which is not so new, and the old notation, just deal with it. It's not that big a deal. It's important to look at the game, right? I know I've had people criticize me for that. They'll find anything to criticize you about, right? Even your hairdo. Woohoo! That's why I'm wearing my hat. I just washed my hair and it's flying all over the place and it was in my eyes. So bishop, so this is the Italian game, right? We've transposed to the Italian. And bishop 4, and now the knight makes an excursus, what they call in the scholarly world an excursus. That is, we are going on an adventure. What is that pesky little guy doing? The way to control that, of course, one option, because you've got the bishop pointing to the f-pawn, right? So you want to watch that because that is always the weak pawn. So when the knight starts rambling, you know they're targeting this f7. Yeah, so this is one way to protect that f7. And now you really know he's on a quick attack when he brings the rook, or the rook, ha! The queen. Yes, the queen and the knight are a savage combination. On any part of the board, it just does not matter, right? So the queen coming up. So what happens if your opponent falls asleep here and he brings his knight to king 4? Here's what happens. Wait, knight to king 4. Yeah, now you put the knight to king 6. Threaten the queen. And you go, interesting move. Like I say, the queen-knight combination is always so deadly. Notice also how that opens up a lateral movement that way for the queen to get that knight. Right? Very interesting idea here. This pawn is pinned, so it can't take. You don't want to take it that way anyway. So if the pawn takes the knight, now you've got it. Queen takes the knight, and white wins a piece. So this is a really cool trap, and you go, all right, okay, hold on. Hold on, how exactly does the white win a piece? Because the bishop doesn't have to stay there just to be taken. And technically speaking, the queen can come to here, right? But the queen also has this. Because it was a fork threat that the queen made. And so now you do win a piece. No matter where the rook goes, you've got the knight. So it's kind of a cool, quick little trap that really does work. So that's one cool little trap out of the Scotch. I'm going to do a few of these from the Scotch game because they're so interesting, and they're somewhat quick, easy to do, fun to look at. I don't know the popularity level at this point. Can you hear me very good? I've got my new mic on so that I don't get that water in the bottle sound for my sound. Let me know if the sound is okay. I'm trying to use my Yeti microphone so that it's clearer. My last live was really kind of rough. I was really disappointed. I almost took it down and restarted. The sound is good. Okay, thanks. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me know that. So this next trap is also in the Scotch game, but this is a wicked kingside attack. Hey, oh, what's his nose? Or what's his face? What's his nose? What's his face? Remember, I've been called rum nose. I'm just saying, my European heritage shows, especially on cold winter mornings, man. So I'm rum nose and you're old what's his face. We're a team, aren't we? That makes sense. Now, this is a really cool, interesting kingside attack where black ends up winning a piece out of the Scotch game. Got a good opening on the Scotch. And again, this is typical standard. And then the Scotch will bump the pawn queen 4, and we can transpose very easy. So if when the pawn is pushed, the pawn takes the pawn, now the knight can take the pawn. And notice the pawn is still unmoved in front of the black queen. So this is a little bit different here. So now the queen comes to rook 5. So the pawn hasn't been pushed, so it's not the diagonal to the king is fundamentally weak, but it's not fatally weak, right? But the queen is preparing to go horizontally across and even up the score, at least protect and attack, protect her center and attack the white pawn. So that's an interesting move. Come straight up. Queen going to hit the pawn. Queen protect the pawn. However, now you're going to bring in another piece, and you're going to bring in another piece. And technically speaking, as a general rule, the knights do belong on the 3rd rank in the opening. I mean, it's not an error. It's not a mistake. You do want to develop, but just as a general rule, you want to keep your eye out when they start putting their knights on that type of a square, because now you've got this. So just like in that last trap we saw, right? The queen and the knight, man, they make a wicked duel. They really do. It's a tough issue. When you start seeing your opponent put together the queen and the knight on either side of the board, sit up and watch. You got to start paying real close attention. And notice the king isn't even castled. No one's castled yet, right? But even if you are castled, the idea, tuck your king, but this combination, you got to watch this really careful. So pawn, king, knight, 3. Okay, so you're going to try to spook the queen away. But the queen comes back here, again, keeping an eye on that f2 pawn. And that's the weak pawn on the white side, right? So there's more than one ways to skin a cat. Here comes the bishop bumping down, or the knight, and the knights can support each other. So in a way, see, now we see the effect of this knight coming to here as opposed to here. Had he been here, he couldn't protect that knight. Because he moved here, it helps protect that knight. So, I mean, there's trade-offs in the opening, whichever direction you go with your knights, your bishops, your queen, your rooks, your pawns, etc. But it helps to be aware of those. So now, the queen knight comes to king 4. Once again, both knights are protecting themselves, but look where black is going. And look at the pieces, the queen and both knights. And it's true, they're not hurrying with development. Now, that can be a downside. Let's see if it affects this particular game. Queen is going to bump back. Doesn't want to give up the fortress of the knight supporting the knight, with the knight taking the knight and the knight taking the knight. He wants to keep it solid, so he chose to move his queen out from that fork, right? So because he did this, now the bishop can come to knight 5, and it's a bishop sack. You go, wow, would I have seen that? What is this doing? Now, the potential here can be that you're going to remove the defender, right? Because the queen not only is helping keep the knight pinned in case he wants to exchange the queens, when you get your queen and knights combined on a side, and the combinations and the traps almost tend toward infinite potential, it's just dangerous, especially if you get both knights over there with the queen, you know. You really have to play heads-up chess. What better way to stop the whole shenanigan than just trade the queens, right? So I think black would understand that. So that's why I say that knight is pinned. It's not pinned because it's a bishop doing it. Granted, the queen exchange wouldn't hurt black, but it would halt the attack. See how that works? So a good move. So why not? It's also defending horizontally this knight because the pawns have moved. The pawns have moved, and that means the light squares are the weak squares. And the knight in defense mode is on a weak square. So a piece has to protect that knight. So in a way, that's why the queen moves over. If you can get that queen off of this defense of this horizontal here, then black's going to have a really good attack. You see how that works? So this is an interesting option for black to say, hey, in order to get the attack going, I'm willing to actually sacrifice my bishop. It'll deflect the queen. Very cool concept here. So let's see what happens. Bishop, knight 5. and queen does take the bishop. So let's see what happens because of the queen taking the bishop. Of course, I just laid it out for you. Now the knight can attack the knight. And I just want to emphasize this. The book doesn't emphasize this, but I'm going to emphasize this because of the logistics. The pawns have bumped up, making the white squares weak. No pawns protect any of those white squares, and the white knight was on the white square. So that is the proper piece to attack. It's a weak piece on a weak square because he deflected the queen. That's a cool strategy, man. That's a cool tactic to do. So now the attack is on. Check to the king. Let's see what the king will do. Nothing, because white still did have this knight support. So now he's forced to exchange the knights. The knight will take the knight, and now the queen will take the knight. So observe the difference of the board, though, because of the way this happened. White has no knights. That's important. It's true, black gave up the bishop pair through that bishop sack to get the queen out of the way so that black could continue his attack. And now he does so. And this is really an interesting situation. So rook goes to what? Rook. Queen takes the knight. Rook goes to king, knight 1. He's going to try to give support. And the queen takes the bishop pawn. Check. Once again, and this is such a great illustration of this. I can never get tired of saying this. One, because it happens against me more than I'm able to use it. But the queen and the knight, what a powerful duo in an attack. Now, a queen alone doesn't really help you. And a knight alone really doesn't help you. And the crazy thing about this is they're still largely undeveloped. And they're still largely uncastled. And yet this attack is going very well. And like I say, you don't want to get to where you make this a habit of playing for just attacking with a couple of pieces. Better chess is using your entire army. But this combination, if you can put it together, could help you weaken your opponent to where when you continue your development, you can play a better game of chess. But as it is, black is looking pretty good, right? So the king has to go to queen 1. And now, of course, queen takes the rook because of the fork. So that's kind of a really interesting kingside attack. Now, it hasn't resulted in a checkmate, but he got a really good extra piece for rook. Now, from this point, he can continue bringing forward his other pieces. Hey, let's say hi to everybody. Oh, what's his? Oh, Ryan Gallinat. What's up from Maryland? Welcome from Maryland. Woohoo, you're a long way away. All right, we are just having fun looking at some chess traps and combinations this morning that I think are particularly effective and easy to see. As always, I try to do the general chess principles because those apply in all positions, all situations. I am enjoying getting a handle, coming back into chess, getting a handle on the strategy and the tactics. I had a friend advise me to start doing more puzzles, which I am doing, and those are very necessary and interesting. Traps and combinations like I'm talking about today are also very useful. Hey, Billy. Bill Graper. Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I love giving you content. Yes, I agree, Bella Glavi Sup. I'm with you. He says we need something from Yusupov's chess course. I guarantee that's in the pipe works. Or how do you say that? I'm giving my age away, aren't I? That is in the pipeline. Or I could have said that's in the works. Yeah, either way. But yeah, I will be producing more of Yusupov, and he is magnificent. He is good. I have done far too little of study in Yusupov, and I will repent of that and get with it. But yeah, absolutely. And Marek Marcos Vadabul, thank you for being here. I'll have to examine that and look at that a little later. Might be a good point. Let's do another Scotch game, though. Don't be discouraged that I'm not going back over that. Now, this one's a little bit longer. That one was for that one was a good combination for the black. Now let's see another one that could work very well for the white. Pawn king 4, pawn king 4, knight f3, knight c6, all of the typical standard. Pawn queen 4, pawn will take the pawn. We've got a Scotch, and the knight will take the pawn. Woohoo! This is all easy to memorize. When the knight takes the pawn, that's the signal for the queen to rook 5. You'll see this often in the Scotch game. Apparently, at least it's in all of these traps and combinations so far that Chernev is showing. So that is going to be a regular feature. You'll want to try to be careful of that. But now knight comes over here to knight 5. And bishop is going to go knight 5 check. So this isn't something to be alarmed about because it's easy to thwart that check by doing the pawn push. Yeah. Okay, so you got the pawn push. But now the queen has this. Queen take the king pawn. See, that's the that's going to be the theme in this game a lot by bringing out the queen all the way over to the rook file. Is now you must learn how to look. For some reason, at least with my eyes, I'm okay. I'm trained, at least I'm mesmerized with the diagonal movement and with the lateral movement. But for whatever reason, I have to focus and concentrate hard to look at the pieces and their influence across the board this way. And that's one of the themes when you bring your queen out. Doesn't matter which side. If she was available over here, you always want to watch across as well. So yeah, she looked completely out of play here. There's no use for her there. She is out early, which is, for most part, is not good chess strategy. That's why I say you don't want to get in the habit of playing for chess traps because that can truly backfire. But now this horizontal movement, and blam, the attack is right back. So this is interesting. Let's see what white does with this. Of course, see again now, and we want to look at this way. This is how we want to say in our own minds how this works. Is the queen is out so early, one, she's going to be a target. But this, yes, it got her the central pawn. At this point, that's not fatal, but black's going to have to play heads-up chess because he's down. But it helps him develop a piece. And it's a good piece, and it's a good place to put that piece. So the queen is doing a job, but in a way, it's helping white. You see how that works? So I'm not so sure I would want to do this all the time, maybe with some of your friends and all. In a tournament, I don't know if I would do this or not. I'm just not convinced. Well, the bishop's going to bump back. That was an intermezzo move, right? That was an in-between move. The bishop had been attacked, and so the queen saw a chance to get a check in, which helped white develop a bishop, and now the bishop moves back. right? So, okay, so the bishop moves back, and now here comes the knight to queen 2, and the queen comes to queen 4, and that's a questionable move, and now knight to bishop 4. So once again, you can see white is speeding up his developing really good. It opens up the queens to check, queen take, queen check, and now the rook will take the queen check, and look who has the partial open file. And the kings are still in the center of the board. And dangerously, the board is wide open. So now black has to pay serious attention. This is not a good situation to be in, all because he's using his queen too much in the opening. Okay, I just want to make that really clear. King goes to queen 1. Now black can't castle. It's permanent. So now white gets to go on the attack. See, it's been set up the way he opened that black has been the one attacking. However, the taking of the central pawn, usually a good thing, has now turned against him. Had he taken that pawn with a bishop or a knight, and he could have supported it with other pawns, to see there's the other downside of a queen coming out, being the attacking piece early. You can't just leave her out there and throw a support pawn up there and keep her in the middle, because a bishop and a knight will still attack her and chase her away. Whereas if it's a bishop or a knight or even sometimes a rook, you can throw up a support pawn and leave the piece there. That's a really important distinction to understand. The queen, though the most powerful piece, you got to be careful in the opening. You really do. So now the knight will take the bishop. The position of white is really getting dangerous. And the knight will take the knight. Once again, the position of the black, just something to keep our eye on and keep our minds on the edge of the board like that. That's just not good. So black is going to have to use / waste yet another move or two just to put the knight in a better position. Yeah, it's out there, but so what? White's position is clearly the better position here for those reasons. That's the only thing out here, and it's not in a great spot. Tell me you can see the difference between the knight being there and if it was there. Yeah, see, there's no contest. The knight is misplaced, all because the queen came out early, attacking no less. So just a good note to keep your eye on. So bishop, king, bishop 4, and once again, man, I got to take off my glasses. Sorry. I look funny enough with my glasses anyway, but so now once again, we get another piece placed in a dynamic position on the board. This is not looking good for black. He is again forced to make yet another pawn move just in order to get some pieces in the game, and white is already overwhelmingly in a better position, and the knight will take the bishop pawn. He is in such a position that he can actually sacrifice a piece to disrupt the position of black and further open the king, who can't castle anyway. Very interesting concept. The king will take the knight, thus bringing the king ever more in the open, and the rook will take the pawn. Now, this is amazing. Check this out. When I know, right? This would be a tough one for me to do and to see, because you're saying, dude, that's a rook. He's going to sacrifice the rook. But it's keeping the king in the open. And that's the key. Once your king can't castle, and if the board is open like this, there's nothing here in the center, pawn chains or anything blocking it off, right? Go after the king with everything you have. Fundamentally so. And here's the other key. You do have an open file. and you do still have the potential to castle. So you really do have the chance to bring your other rook into the game. Look at black. Black doesn't have a chance to get his rooks in this game, does he? But white does. That very well could be the telling difference. Now, knight to queen bishop 3. He knew he can't take the rook. It's untouchable. Wait. Have I done something wrong? I've done something wrong. Oh my gosh, no! King took the knight. Rook took the pawn. That's the only pawn that was available. Knight to queen bishop 3. And now it's saying rook queen 5 check. Did I miss putting the bishop somewhere? Oh, you know what? I did that wrong. That was queen bishop 4. There's the bishop 4 move. Oh man, I did that wrong. Crap. Wouldn't you see? That's what I'm known for. Making errors like that. I'm the laughing stock of the chess world. It's all good. Let me start this over. I want to show you this right because it's such a good game. After all that fabulous exposition, I completely undid it quickly. That's the downside of having this kind of a board as opposed to an electronic chessboard, right? So, all right, just be patient with me. I know. There's much better things to do with my time than watch you redo a game, BYP. Yeah, I get it, but I promise this is going to deliver fireworks. This is good stuff. If I can ever get it right. See, that's the problem with having, what I probably ought to do is take the time to put this old nomenclature back into the good algebraic. That's what I need to do. Okay, pawn, king 4, pawn, king 4. Let me redo this real quick because it's worth it. Knight, queen, bishop 3. We got the pawn, queen 4. And the pawn will take the pawn. And the knight will take the pawn. This is good review of the Scotch opening. And then the queen comes to the rook 5. Again, the early queen attack, which is not the best way to do this. It's just not. Knight, knight 5, bishop, knight 5 check, and the pawn push to the bishop, and the bishop goes to bishop, knight 5 check, pawn, bishop 3. Nope, it doesn't. Queen took the pawn first. Queen takes the pawn check, and there the bishop comes up, and now the bishop bumps back to bishop rook 4. So then the knight comes out to queen 2, hitting the queen, and the queen bumps back to queen 4, which is not the ideal spot. The knight begins to make his move in. The queens exchange, which means the main fighting piece of black is now gone, and the king being put in check can no longer. No, the rook took the queen and the king went to queen 1. There was no check there, sorry. Now the knight takes the bishop and the knight takes the knight. Misplacing the knight, now the bishop goes to king bishop 4. There's where I made my mistake. King bishop. Boy, I'm so used to algebraic notation in these old books. That's why they reprint these, actually. A lot of the times they'll reprint them into the algebraic. Nimzovich's old books they're doing that with. So it's worth studying his stuff now. Okay, so this is the position. Again, the white has the better position without question. Black is now in trouble because he brought his queen out. So bishop, king, bishop 4, and now the pawn comes to queen 3. He's forced to make another pawn move again with the knight way off on the side in order just to get his pieces out. So the effect of this is, really seriously, Black's never going to be able to put his rooks into this game. He's rookless, and white has all the opportunity to put his rooks in the game. And we'll see how this works. Knight takes the bishop pawn. Now the knight can take the bishop pawn, and the king can take the knight. That looks much better. Now the rook takes the pawn, and we're going to have a discovered check. If black misplays this. After all, I misplayed it just to show it to you. Black might. But he doesn't. Knight to queen, bishop 3. And now rook goes to queen 5. He steps back 1 to deliver the discovered check. And the king, now the king, you got to understand something. From this point, you have a really important critical decision to make. Because if you go back, you really don't have a chance. The board is too open. So he chooses to come forward, and hopefully some of his pawns and bishop and knight can get up here in front of his king. But notice how exposed that king is. All because the queen came out so early and was the attacking piece. That's the point. So let's see what happens here. Yeah. Ta-da. Kablam. Rook, knight 5 check. I'm going to make sure I did this right. Yeah. Rook goes right over there, knight 5 check. King goes to rook 3. Because the bishop hasn't been developed yet. But look at the influence. The bishop's out here, and he has access down to here. All he has to do is bump a few pawns. This guy's in trouble. King goes to rook 3, and now bishop. Watch this. This is a great move. Bishop, bishop 7. Holy Toledo. Notice instead of moving backwards to attack, he came all the way up into black's camp, and black can't do a thing about it. That is incredible, man. What a move. I love seeing stuff like that, unless, of course, it's against me in a game, right? And usually that's how it works. So heads up, it does happen. So I'm just saying. So now you really have to block off as best you can the influence of that bishop. However, great move, but you have enough influence that the rook can just simply take the pawn check. He sacrifices the rook. Yeah. However, he knows it's helpless because it's a double check. That's the power of a double check, right? You'd love to take that rook. So he didn't sacrifice the rook. He double checked the king, and that means the king has to move, and that is why. And there's many grandmasters. I believe Silman talks about this quite extensively in his books. The double check is simply one of the most powerful ways to attack you can possibly put together, because what normally would be a sacrificial move by any of the pieces, if it's a double check, that forces the king to have to move. And therefore, you didn't sacrifice the rook. And now you've got that one for the mate. You can go here and be perfectly safe, but that's not mate. He still has the A file. And I'm talking out loud for me. He's still protected, but this, once again, being the double check, but now this square is covered also by the bishop. That is a beautiful checkmate. All because the queen came out too early as the attacking piece. And that's what I wanted to point out to you. So, yeah. Hey, John, thanks. It's okay if you're late. Hey, Red Panda. Dilip Kumar Yadav, he's saying something that I do not understand. Sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult here, but anyway, magnifique, magnifique. Yeah, I had to redo that game simply because it's so good. You're welcome. I'm sorry I muffed up the game. Let's do another one here. I'll reset this up. But, you know, I am only human. And hey, it's fun to review anyway. But the lessons that we get from this type of exercise really, in the long run, can help us, because will you now ever forget the impression that this game makes on the extreme difficulty you could have if you bring your queen out early as one of the attacking pieces before full development? No, that changes your perception. Yes, the queen is still the most powerful piece on the board. That is absolutely true. But misusing her in that manner, the way Black did in this last game, did not help. It actually hindered his game. So with that in mind, again, the caution will always come up. It is vastly superior in 99% of the cases to leave the queen home, develop her the last, and let's get all of our pieces out first. That's what that game tells me. And so this is a good reinforcement, a double check, if you will, pun intended, to make sure that we're playing our openings correctly so that we at least have a chance. Because once the queen, and the dumb thing is, the queen was essentially the only developed piece in that game. Once you get rid of that developed piece, Black is back to square one with the knight over here doing absolutely nothing, entirely misplaced, and White had 3 and 4 and 5 pieces. You can't win a game against someone who has 5 pieces out there and you only have 1 that is misplaced. So, I have belabored that to death, but that is really an important chess lesson. That's a fun one to really share. And thank you for sharing the time with me so that I can share it. And here's another. Okay, this one's short, sweet, and simple. Okay, so let's go again. Again, the Scotch game. So pawn, king 4, pawn, king 4. Knight out, knight out. Got to hit the pawn to queen 4. That's the essence of the Scotch game, and the pawn takes the pawn. Similar to the Sicilian, except you're not bringing out the c pawn. You're doing it with the queen pawn, right? Pawn take pawn, knight take pawn. And bishop, bishop 4. There's the, whoop. No. Get it right, Carrie. Bishop, bishop 4 here hitting the knight. Yeah, that's Black. And now the bishop to king 3. Notice, and this is something I have to learn. I know, and I've been critiqued severely, justifiably. It is better to move a piece than a pawn if you can at all do that, right? So the knight is a great central knight, but it is going to be attacked. Well, just exchanging the knight can't help Black, because that puts him back at square one. There's no pieces developed. So the way to attack that knight is to attack it again, and he does so with, not a pawn, but with the developed piece. Now that's good chess. However, rather than bumping the pawn to support the knight, this gives White an opportunity to bring another piece to support his piece. And I promise, I'm showing these for my sake. This is pure hedonism on my part. I hope you're getting something out of this. But I have a tendency to push pawns too much. And that is a downside of my game, and it does cost me games. So this is a great lesson. Support your piece by a developed piece. I love this. I love this. And now queen to bishop 3. Okay, so again, the early queen push, but yeah, it's not as early as the last game, but it is an early queen push. You really want to keep this under wraps if you can at all help it. Really try hard not to do this too often. You do have your piece developed, Now it is okay to help support it with the pawn push, right? Now that's good. That's the proper order. And king, knight, king, two. So black is coming on. He's getting the pieces out, right? But now knight, queen, two. No, no, because now the knight's going to take the knight. See, this square is covered 3 times. And by putting the knight here, you stop one of the supporters on the white side. So that's the time to pull the trigger. The knight takes the knight. Pawn will go to king 5. And the mistake here is queen to take the pawn. The reason why that is a mistake is because now the pawn takes the knight and you've got the fork. Ouch. See, I fall for this stuff all the time too. So tactics, man. That's a nifty little tactic. Pawn takes the knight. Bishop will take the pawn. And now, interestingly, knight to bishop 4. Both pieces are hit. One of them's going to fall. And you're winning the bishop is what happens. Without question. Because, of course, the queen isn't going to stay there unless you're me. Yes, I'm kidding. I promise I'm kidding. I'm slow, but I'm not that slow. So that's kind of a cool little puzzle piece too. And I do have yet again another Scotch game that I want to show you. I'm really on the Scotch. Hey, hi from Taiwan. Thank you for being here. Hey, Creedon family, shout out. Woohoo. Oh, you're awesome sauce yourself. Yes, of course you're awesome sauce. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Thank you, Marcos. Benavul. I'll look into that, but I wasn't sure if, the queen swap, not so sure. Okay, so let's take another look. See the cool, are you noticing a pattern of ideas here in the Scotch? You almost get the impression that black thinks that the only way to get an edge up in the game is to bring his queen out early. And I'm hoping that that impression builds on us, because, and I might be showing my ignorance here, which is nothing new. I do that all the time. But I don't know of any grandmaster that says it's advisable to hurry up and get your queen out there and help use her to attack in the early formation of the openings. I don't know of anybody that says that. So this is a good, it's one thing just to say it. Hey, yo, dope, don't put your queen out there early, you numbskull. If you put your queen out there early, she's going to be taken, or she's going to cut to the game, or you're going to be behind in development and you're going to get trounced. Yeah, it's one thing to talk about it. But here's the evidence. And this is what makes it real. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. And pass the mustard. Let us do another Scotch game. This is a really good opening to practice. It's a decent opening, I think, but showing you how not to use your queen. That can be as valuable of knowledge to learn how not to use your pieces as to learn how to use your pieces, right? Knight out, the queen. Pawn to the queen 4 up, of course. Pawn will take the pawn. Typical in the Scots, the knight, you go ahead, you're safe. The knight. See, this is what I was saying the last game. If the knight takes the knight and the queen takes the knight, there's not even a knight here to come out to harass the queen. That's the one that got exchanged. Now, I'm not saying this is ideal for white, but look at the difference. It's like black just starting. White has a central pawn, very important, and a piece. So really, truly, that's why in the Scotch, black is not, you don't have to fear that black is going to take your knight. Once the pawn takes the pawn, you're free to retake the pawn and you're not a pawn down. Always do that. You're fine. That knight's not going to take that knight. Now, the knight will come back out to knight bishop 3, hitting the pawn, of course. That is to be expected, sure. And here again, you bring your knight out to support the pawn. Okay, so that makes sense. It's all good. And bishop knight 5. Again, I said this in my video last night. Don't be shocked or surprised if your opponent puts this pin on you. And I know so many of us, man, I get it. That pin makes me as uncomfortable as anybody because it's directly against the king, right? But it's not a crisis. You really don't have to address this immediately unless there's other pieces following up, in which case there may well be. So you do want to have a heads up approach, but don't let that freak you out. That's just actually basically typical, because now, because of the nature of this opening, we know realistically the black knight is not going to exchange with the white, but at this point, you as white can exchange the knight. Yeah. Now go ahead and take that knight. That will help prevent tactics down the road on your queen side, because your queen is not very, you just have to bump a pawn and your queen's over here with a bishop and a knight, and that can be vicious for tactics, right? If they decide, let's go beat up on the queen side, just to be aware. So you go ahead and exchange the knight. He'll exchange with the knight pawn, so the doubled pawns, right? And now bishop queen 3. Ta-da! Blam! Yet another beautiful placement of the beautiful piece. And pawn queen 4, another beautiful pawn thrust, challenging the center. You do not have to exchange just because the tension is there, but don't make the mistake in this instance. And I know there's so much to memorize, right? As a general chess principle, the mistake is the pawn king 5 here. Now, there are some cases, and again, welcome to chess. This comes from experience, and I don't have enough yet, but I'm working on it hard. Pushing the pawn to attack the knight. In this instance, it doesn't work, because now the knight comes to knight 5. Keep in mind, now the kings aren't castled. Isn't this interesting how so many of the traps, these different combinations, work because they refuse to castle a king? Kings are still in the center. So the theme that should be happening is if you castle and your opponent hasn't, blow open the center. But you can't blow open the center if you're not castled. That's not wise. Okay, that's the watchword. I'm just passing it on, right? So the queen can come over real quick and easy. Remember, we're still in the Scotch game. And once again, the queen and the knight are a tough combination. So be careful here when the knight's moving forward to the side. You must pay attention. White castles. And bishop, queen, bishop 4. There you go. Now you've got a crisscross of influence that you really want to pay attention to. The weakest part. Now he's castled, that's true, but that pawn, the pawn is supported by the rook. That's true, but the theme here is he's not attacking the pawn. He's not wanting to take that pawn as such. That's a pin to the king, which is an absolute pin. So now a knight taking that pawn is safe. If the rook was to retake, the rook would be pinned. And that's not good. Better to have the pawn than the rook pinned. So we want to keep our eye on this, yeah. And he says, okay, look, let's get you out of the way. Well, there he goes. It was a good maneuver to get rid of the king pawn. He might not have been maneuvering at all in order to attack the king's side directly, but giving support with the bishop is the right way to play that, because now you get the central king pawn, right? So now what? Well, you've castled, put the rook on the open file across from the king. Yeah, okay. I said that before. I've got to practice that in my games a little more, as I showed you in my game last night. Even though I was fortunate, I had a pretty good win. So rook across from the king, pinning the knight. Now there's an F pawn here. Once you pin a piece, you attack the piece, and then you win the piece. The F pawn push, but just recognize it does open up the king side, the castled king, a little bit more, right? So be cautious. I know sometimes I just throw it up there and say, ha, gotcha. And then the queen comes through and wipes me out because I exposed the king. So you gotta think through this. And guess what happens? Here comes the queen. Now, not all the way out to the H file, but here comes the queen. So aren't you glad you didn't push the F pawn just yet? Yes, it's supported by the bishop. I get all that. But attacking with pawns before you're fully developed, and white is hardly developed, that's not the way to play good chess. Yeah. So it's good to see he did not push that F pawn. That's what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way. So the queen will come up, develop. Okay, now you're double hitting the knight because it is pinned. And now black has to realize I've only got it protected once. Do the math. 1, 2 attackers, only 1. And if the tactic threat here is a nifty tactic, and I'll show it out to you in detail. You guys already saw it. Queen gets a knight, queen takes the queen, and rook takes the queen with a check, potentially, although the bishop would block. But you got a knight and a queen for a queen, so that's the threat. So how do you address that? How do you address that? You castle. Because now there's still the threat they're going to win the knight. You can get a knight. The queen would not be forced to exchange, but you're still going to get a piece up. You still got to figure something out, and that's what happens. So you've won a piece. Nice. The queen takes the pawn check. Very interesting maneuver because we forgot about the bishop, the dark squared bishop, right? Notice the counterattack. That is so cool to see. See, this is something else yet again. I mean, I have trillions of things yet to learn in chess, right? But seriously, this attack, losing a piece, I mean, that's disheartening. You go, gosh, dang it, how could I fall for that? But the principle of counterattack, I know it's difficult. I've got to learn how to toughen myself up so that when I get attacked and potentially lose a piece, I look and I try to find, all right, you want to play tough guy, how can I counterattack? And the grandmasters really push this concept, and they love it when you can make this work. What a great counterattack check. Oh, you took my knight. Blam, I'm coming after you. Anyway, I'm not intimidated. I'll put it that way. So this is good. This is really interesting. King Rook 1. So let's take a careful look because there's something else really, really cool here. The rook's unprotected. Now, quite frankly, that's a tough piece, right? Except that it's not unprotected. So you can't take the rook, and you can't go checkmate, and you can't take the pawn because you got to have something protecting you. What do you do? What do you do? Sniper bishop. All this time, that bishop's been sitting back there, eyeing the H-pawn. So you're real close. He's got a good defense. Come on, he's got a good defense, right? He really does. But if you start chipping away and breaking it apart, the best way to break apart a king-castled fortress is how Yusupov calls it. Building a fortress around your king is chip away by sacrificing pieces. See, that's what makes Tull's game so fun to watch, yeah? That's what makes Alekhine so fun to watch. That's what makes Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura and Danyo Naroditsky so fun to watch, because they do this also. Today's living grandmasters. Bishop takes pawn. Pawn takes bishop, and now, holy cow. I mean, come on. Isn't that wild? You got the queen right next to your king, and your king is wide open. Is that crazy or what? Look at that. Okay, yeah. So you got to be careful, because you're not exactly in wide open territory. So you got to pick and choose which squares you're going to go to. Check to the king here. King to rook 2, and now ta-da! What a vicious pin, right? That's all of our favorite pins to do. Yeah. So very cool, interesting game. And the crazy thing is, see, he was undeveloped, so he didn't get his whole army in, but so was black. But it's really interesting that because the pawn was moved, that the black bishop, even though it stayed on its home square, played a huge part in opening up that king by getting rid of the G-pawn. Notice what this was. I mean, yes, the bishop took the H-pawn. What I meant by getting rid of the G-pawn is transferring the defender so that it was possible. If the G-pawn was there still, he couldn't have come up here to the only safe square for the queen to continue the forcing move of check to the king, right? So by sacrificing the piece on the H3 with the bishop, the G-pawn has to transfer, which it did, and that opened up the position. It's like a can opener with a can of wonderful salmon. Wild caught salmon is the best, just one twist at a time. And eventually your can opens up. So that's kind of fun. That's cool. That's fun to see. I like games like that because systematically, see, I'm not going to lie to you. It's still tough to sacrifice pieces for me. I don't know about you guys, but I have such a hard time sacking pieces, trying to see far enough ahead of time that in the process of sacking material, it does give you a stronger attack with the material that's remaining. And so you can utilize that in such a way as to go get either the king checkmated or to win a queen, which in essence is winning the game, especially with this. I mean, okay, so the best you can hope for is take the bishop. Okay, so let's let him take the bishop. There's your position. Number one, black owns the center with pawns. Number two, I agree, you guys. They're doubled pawns, but all three of these pawns are passed pawns. And you have both rooks. Where do they belong? You in the back, you've got your hand raised. Yes, you. Rooks. Rooks belong behind passed pawns. That's not a defensive maneuver. That's a power grab. Now push like lightning, baby. put the pedal to the metal, stick it in fifth gear, and romp to your queenhood. Black would entirely win this game with just this, pretty much all by itself. With the queen here running interference, this is like Smokey and the Bandit. You remember the old movies in the 1980s, Smokey and the Bandit with Burt Reynolds and what's his nose, McCoy? Yeah, the trucker and the guy in the hot rod black Trans Am. Who can forget when the Trans Am became popular? He was out there running around, zippity-doo-dah, getting the cops off the trucker's back so that the trucker could break the law, doing 195 per down the interstate to bootleg the whiskey. This is the theme. That's the idea. So anyway, boy, I'm giving my age away, aren't I? Woohoo! All right, we already all know I'm an old fart. It's all good. Okay, so let's do another one. Are you in the mood for another one? You want to see another one? Have I completely confused you and turned you off and convinced you that chess isn't worth it? If I have, I deserve to be fired. That is not what I'm trying to do. You guys want some more? Oh, no, Jonathan Current. Jonathan Current. Good to see you, my friend. I helped him learn chess, and now he's turning it back on me and whopping me in chess. I'm so proud of him. I can't hardly stand it. Welcome, John. Good to see you, my friend. I've just done a couple of these trap videos. So, yeah, we're having an actual good game right now, and he's starting to put the screws to my thumbs already again in this game. Woohoo! And Melissa's Mind. Hey, yeah, good to see you, dear. And Bella Glavi's, okay. You're all saying yes. Okay. Awesome. Okay, well, let's keep going then. Hey, if you guys are up for it, I am. This is fun. I don't know about you guys, but this kind of stuff just helps reinforce a lot of cool lessons. And I appreciate the fact, and I'm sincere when I say this, that there are women who are interested in chess. We need more women in chess. Sincerely, I realize the male ego can turn off women in chess. I mean, you know, the famous or infamous. I mean, Victor Korchnoi was absolutely superb, and so was Polgar. And when they played and she beat him, and he walked off in a huff and you know, his ego was hurt. I get all that. My ego's hurt, whether it's a man or a woman who beats me. But so thank you, Melissa's Mind. It's wonderful to have you here. And I'm not trying to single you out because you're a woman. I'm just saying it's cool to see more women. Amy Cramling? Cramling, man, I hope I'm getting her name right. Have you seen her YouTube videos? Both of her parents are grandmasters. And she's playing chess, and she's quite popular. She's really cool. There's several others. So, I mean, it's awesome. There's another grandmaster, dark-haired gal. Oh, can't think of her name right off. It's on the tip of my tongue. I've been watching her videos, and she really does a good exposition of chess. I have to hustle just to keep up with these guys. Okay, so shut up and show us another video, dude. Okay, another Scotch game. This will be the last. Hey, my suspicion is, and I don't have the first pages of this. I'm not quite sure when this book was published. I have had it for decades, played through it a few times. I believe it would be in the 1960s or 1970s, this one, Winning Chess Traps with Irving Chernev. But maybe back then the Scotch game was somewhat popular because he's got a lot of interesting traps and puzzles involved. I mean, you can see my binding is all tore apart and I had to tape it up. And I mean, the cotton picking book is falling apart because I used it so much. So I'm trying to tape it up and preserve it. Yeah. Okay. So, and this is another real good kingside attack. Now, the other thing we'll notice with so many traps in so many different openings that happen is the board it ends up being in a position as such that you can really get some good kingside attacks, and that's always fun to watch because you love seeing the piece sacrifices. I mean, we all do. Let's just face it. Piece sacrifices rock in chess, but it's nerve-wracking to do them because have I done my calculating right? Okay, now wait. I'm giving up a knight for a pawn and then a rook for a pawn. Is my follow-up accurate so I can checkmate this guy? Otherwise, I'm down enough material that I'm going to lose the game. That's where the nerve-wracking comes in, at least for me, right? It just drives me crazy. So, pawn, queen, 4, pawn, take, pawn. Another fantastic Scotch game opening, knight takes pawn. And like I said last time, sincerely, it's truly unlikely that this knight exchange is going to happen, because that leaves black right back to square one and white with a superior lead in development. So so don't be afraid to retake that pawn with that knight. You must. So you can leave the tension for a few moves. You in turn don't have to immediately go after it. Get some more pieces out. But understand, the option for you to exchange the knight is much better than if you're black. Keep that in mind if you're playing this as black. There are good moves you can do for this, and we'll show you, because black gets the upper hand in this game too. Well, enough elaboration. Okay, so again, appropriately, bring out both knights and bring them both out on the proper squares. Now, there are times, absolutely, you'll see every grandmaster do this. There are times when you really do want to develop your knight onto the second row. A lot of this occurs in the Caro-Kann when you play the Caro-Kann as black, because in essence, later on in the game, you are going to be wanting to attack the weak d4 pawn of white in the Caro-Kann. So this is really good in that opening in some instances, but for the most part, seriously, put your knights out there on the best squares, which is right there. And now you can initiate the taking of the knight, the exchange of the knight. You don't win the knight, but you exchange it and you shatter the queenside pawn structure. So, okay, from here, okay, now you've made an attack, an exchange. Go ahead and keep bringing pieces out. Bishop, queen 3, pawn, queen 4. So again, we see he's forced to make another pawn move, but this is not bad because it is a central pawn move. It does put tension on the center. It opens up the bishop. So now both bishops are open to development. The queen is open to development. So you're good. They say not too many pawn moves in the beginning, but if you're going to do pawn moves, and you have to, make them the center pawns, because it opens up your possibility for your piece development. This is what we're seeing black do. Very appropriate, very good. And now once again, is this the one I just showed? Don't tell me I just showed this. No, I didn't. Boy, this is following very similar to the last one. That's good. It repeats. Pawn, king 5, again, questionable. And knight 5. Here we go again with that same kind of attack. Bishop, king, bishop 4. Bishop, queen, bishop 4. Once again, just like in the Italian game, you know, when you, as white, when you bring your bishop, not to here, but when you bring your bishop to the 4, to the c4, in this instance, you'll always want to keep track of that f pawn, right? That's your weakness on the white side. On the dark side, it's always that f7 pawn. I mean, that's where they make the infamous scholar's mate. You know, you've got that quick fried liver attack thing that has been refuted 100 million times, and yet hundreds of millions of us keep trying it. I mean, who doesn't like attempting the fried liver? Come on, fess up, raise your hand. You know you like trying it. I do. You get slaughtered if anybody knows how to manhandle you, but it's fun if you find a noob that doesn't know what you're doing. You can checkmate him in like 4 moves. It's awesome. Don't try it. Not in a serious chess tournament. Okay, who else here? Yes, Irina Krush. Thank you. That is her. That's the other woman grandmaster I was thinking of. Thank you. I was. Hey, Nathan Gwynn. Oh, thank you very much. That's my goal is. And Rick Topke. Oh, well, thank you. And Melissa's okay. You guys, you want more? You got it. So anyway, what was I lying about? Yeah. Just keep your eye. You don't have to get all nervous, although you need to perk up here because tactics are already in the formation. Not that you have to try to prevent them yet. The best way, I might be spouting a falsism here instead of a truism. I think that the more you've got your pieces developed, honestly, that's probably the better way, the best way to prevent tactics. One, because you have more options to prevent it with different pieces and pawns. I mean, that almost is just a logical argument. But just recognize, here it comes. Here comes some time. And, you're not fully ready to castle queenside. So, I mean, it looks obvious that the white's going to want to castle on the king side. Yeah, that makes sense. So is black. So we've got, and actually so far in the Scotch, I haven't seen anyone castle on queenside. It's always worked so that both sides castle same side, and there is nothing wrong with that. Nothing whatsoever. So anyway, knight 5. So time to pay attention. So he brings the bishop up. Notice what square he's covering, right? He's covering the 8. Sometimes the combination with the tactics get rid of the H pawn and the rook. So you got to be careful. Depends on how he develops. That's not the case here, but I'm just saying. The bishop developed, which is good, plus covering the H pawn is good, but it's the F pawn that's double attacked. Just be aware of that. Bishop, queen, bishop 4. Yeah, that's the last move. Okay. And so he castles. And actually, you guys, I don't want to put the fear of tactics in you so hard that you end up saying in your own games, well, I mean, if they've double attacked the F pawn, then I'm not going to castle. No, that's taking it to the other extreme. That's not what I'm saying. However, the rook in front of the F pawn is stronger than just the king because the king supports the rook. And I'm going to share a secret with you. And this is a really important concept, so I'm done farting around for just a moment. I love to have fun, and it's fun to have fun and all, but here's a serious moment of instruction. It is beneficial to you. You welcome this kind of an exchange in a tactic if they do go after your rook after you castled. Let's just assume for the sake of the argument that he goes ahead and says, I am going to take that pawn after all. Go ahead and take it with the rook, the knight. And it doesn't matter whether he takes that pawn with either the knight or the bishop. It doesn't matter. Take it. And then he'll take, and then the king will take. You're already castled, so don't worry about losing the castling right. What this is you are getting a bishop and a knight for a rook and a pawn. And that exchange favors you. In the middle game, in the opening in the middle game, if you can get the bishop and knight and all they get is the rook, advantage you. Isn't that interesting? Because, look, I am not kidding. I have a morbid terror of losing a rook and gaining only a knight or a lowly bishop, or even both of them. And that's where I've been wrong. All of the grandmasters will tell you that. And this is kind of new to me, say within the last year or so. And so I have made that exchange happily and been excited. It doesn't freak me out and depress me, and I resign because they got my rook. They got my rook. The game's not worth it now because now I can't put my rook on the file. So there's no point. I have no attack. I quit. Believe it or not, at one point that's how I used to think. I used to be so guarding of my rooks that it actually hindered my game. So that's an important teaching moment in this game. Now, that's not what happens here, I don't think. We'll see. Let's keep going, but that's important to know. So, castles. Oh, yeah. Here, he's coming after you now. Okay, now the attack's on. So, how do you handle this? Just come back. I love how International Master Alex Bonze says it. He's the Romanian. He's another YouTuber. Oh, I love that kid. His accent is awesome. I know Levy at Gotham Chess has had a little spat with him, and he mocks him and imitates him and makes fun of him and all, but Bonze is sharp as a razor, man. I love that kid. He's awesome. But sometimes he'll say, okay, look, I took a piece and then my piece is attacked. What do? Just come back home. Right? Because so many people say it's a disaster if you retreat. No, it's not. Just recognize you want to keep an active army. Right? That's the key. So he come back. That's how you solve that attack problem. You don't freak out, just move your bishop back. You still have the diagonal. See, if you think right, I'm attacking your punk pawn. So you better keep your mighty queen babysitting that lowly pawn, because I'm going to take him off if you don't. When you have that attitude, it lessens the queen influence, doesn't it? Queen to here? Oh, no, you move that lady. Blam, I'm taking your pawn. You get to do babysitting now, lady. You stay right there, or there, or there. Come to here. Right? So see how that affects it. Coming back didn't harm you at all. That's all I'm saying. I'm probably making too big a deal about that. I'm not trying to, but this is really fun to see and learn and see how it works and how it doesn't work. So the queen does come to here. Now, just keep your eye on it. It's not a necessary emergency yet, but anytime you see the opponent put the queen in front of the king, it's always good to stick the rook in front of that. Right? Let's see if he does that. Nope, not yet. Not yet, but he does something superbly beautiful. He supports that pawn. Yeah. He puts the bishop on a better diagonal. Yeah. So this is good. That's a great move. Nothing wrong with that. And here comes black. Now that's the proper approach. That pawn is a target for black. It's weak. It's an isolated pawn at this point. It doesn't have to remain that way. But for now, that means that's a target. I used to do that years ago, and you guys got a who target. Yeah. But when you blockade, then you attack. Yeah, now who's doing the babysitting? Right? So black's turning the tide here, baby. Cool stuff. Fun to see. Bishop, king 3. Now, pawn, king, rook 3. No, you didn't have to do that. Hold on, I got to get a drink of water. I got to wet me whistle. Wet me whistle, comrades. Oh, man. There's nothing better than ice cold water. I don't care what they say. So. Oh, you want to play tough guy with the pawns. Now, this is an important thing. Someone keeps telling me my Chessboard wiggles. It does. I apologize. I'll get over it. Oh, you're going to attack? No, I'm going to attack. Catch this. Are you willing to lose your knight? Think this through. Wait. That's a pawn attacking the knight, man. No. Well, all right, look. You can't put it there. You can't put it there. You can't put it there. The only square you have is there. So you keep the knight, but it's such a passive move. You kind of make it look like a squirrel out of a tree, just sitting on the ground. That's not the place to put a knight, right? Realize something that is seriously important. Now we're in the middle game, and see, I know I may be teaching you something wrong here. If I am, you guys correct me. It's all good. The bishop is coming through, but it is blocked at this point, right? The queen has potential of at least getting in here, although he can start pushing that pawn. But were you to make that passive of a play, you've got to understand that white has pawns also that he can begin to push and attack you. And by taking your knight that far back in a passive mode, that might actually be you. That's really not that good. That could harm you. You also block your H-pawn. Now that might be a disaster because that H-pawn can be a missile down to attack the king, and it's backed up by the rook. But now if you were to do this kind of a move, your knight would be a traitor to a really good attack. Do you see that? So, and this is part of the fun of chess. This is part of the this is part of the, for lack of a better description, this is the blood and guts of chess, you guys. Right? Oh, you're going to attack? No, I'm going to attack you. Notice the counterattack motive. Again, I've mentioned this in the past games. When you're attacked, is there an option? Is there a way that rather than you just reacting to what is happening to you, and I'm not lessening the danger here, the knight's in trouble, but is there a way that you can say, oh, you think you're hitting me? Like Rocky against Apollo Creed. He gets hit. Boom. Oh, you think that's a hit? Let me show you a punch. And then he hits back. He counterattacks. Counterattack. That's nice. This is a good lesson. Let's see the effect of this. Let's see. Man, I hope I can remember where I am. Oh, I'm at the diagram. Okay. Oh, hey, I am at the diagram. I can make sure I'm doing this correct so that I don't have to redo this one also. No, it's all good. So, watch how, because black takes the horse by the reins and he says, giddy up, man. We're coming after you. No, you're not the one attacking. I'm attacking you. You better pay attention. White makes an error. He takes the pawn. Oops. How is that an error? So, here's the lesson. Black sacrificed his pawn in order to give his rook power to get to that king. And like I was saying, had he brought his knight back, that would have been a traitor. You couldn't have got the rook into the game. Now the rook is a monster. Very important lesson. So let's see what happens here. Uh-oh. And that's true. Yeah, he's got doubled pawns, and the best way to stop the doubled pawns is to blockade him. But they still do affect very important key squares now that are real close to the white king on the H and the F files, right? H3 and F3, F4 and H4. So pieces can land there that'll help attack that king. So, but yeah, white is doing the best he can now. He's saying, oh, dang it. Whoops. Now I've got a blockade. That's the proper reason. Man, you don't want these guys advancing. Stop them. So that's good. And now, hello, darling. Guess what? The queen no longer has to babysit the pawn. Now she comes alive. And she's got a worthy ally with the rook on the open H file. And the white rook can't even compete with the black rook. The white rook can't even get over there to exchange the rooks, which is a very good strategy for you to do if your opponent takes over an open file. If you can help it, don't just let him have it, for crying out loud. It's better to exchange the rooks than to allow your opponent to have the open file and operate on it to attack you. And I know we all love our rooks. I'm talking to me here, man. But it is better to exchange the rooks. But white can't even do that. So is the knight sacrifice worth? Let's keep looking. This is gonna get good, man. So tuck up. Keep everything tight and protected. That's about all you can do. That's about all you can do. And kablam. Okay. Hold it. Error, Will Robinson. You remember the old Lost in Space? Danger, Will Robinson. Danger, Will Robinson. The robot, the goofy robot. Nothing's protecting the rook. What on earth are you doing? Sacrificing it. Wait, you just gave up the knight. Now you're going to give up the rook? I know, man. Hardest lesson in chess to learn. It's I don't know. I couldn't do it this way. Maybe that's why I'm not winning enough chess games. That's why these exercises are so important. So, yeah, of course. King takes the rook. Rook puts you in check. Now comes even the more powerful piece. So you have the attack with the knight. All right. But sacrifice it because it activated the much more powerful rook. So now you've got a better attack with the rook. Sacrifice it. Because now you've got the attack with the superior of all, queen. You see how that works? You got to get rid of the old and the weak to bring in the new and the strong. This is the toughest thing in chess to be able to put into our games, man. I'm talking to me, but still. So let's see how this works now. King comes back to knight one. And now, what did I tell you about those doubled pawns? Right. Look at their usefulness now. I mean, seriously. Even though they're blockaded, they're dangerous because they're so close to the king. So it's all good. So let's see what happens here. Bishops. So here's the other strategy that is really important to understand. If you are the attacker, you want to keep your pieces on the board. If you are the one being attacked, you want to exchange the pieces. Ideally, hopefully he'll blunder some pieces so that you can just simply take them and keep yours. Realistically, don't hope for that, but do exchange more attackers. And this guy especially, because he's gonna just create terror for you with that pinned pawn. So this is a good move, right? And look at this. Did we forget that black still had castling rights? And what a way to use them. Yeah, because now castling is not about getting your king to safety. Your king's not in any danger. Castling is getting the next rook in the field. And he's got his favorite highway wide open, the H file. Who happens to be on the H file? His best friend, the queen. Bishop to rook 7. You gotta try something to stop the exchange or the connection, because it's checkmate next move. Rook, rook 1. Queen, queen 3. Now you can see white scrambling, right? Bishop takes bishop. Notice this, that white didn't even get the chance to exchange the bishop because black's position was so strong that he could not allow the connection between the rook and queen, or it was checkmate. He couldn't even get the powerful bishop taken and exchanged. It's black that gets to do the exchanging, and it's not an exchange. That's amazing play by black, because black's position gave black the more forcing moves than white had. He's forcing, his moves are so much stronger that white has no choice but to react to him. That's what I mean when I say forcing moves. He's forcing. Black's got the initiative, in other words. So bishop takes bishop. Hey, welcome to the party. You're a little late though, horse. Finally, you get that piece developed. I mean, man, too little, too late. Where were you when we needed you, right? Where were you when we needed you? And now, of course, rook takes bishop. And that means black wins the queen. Now, how does black win the queen? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because it is checkmate. There's only one way to prevent it. The queen has to take that rook. Right? So the bishop was protected by the queen for a few moves. But once this bishop fell, once the queen is established powerfully with the help of that pawn, and the king is sealed off from his own rook, because his rook could not get back over here to exchange the rook off the file, now the queen has to take the rook to avoid checkmate. And in the end, it's a one game. Fascinating to see. Just absolutely fascinating to see how these traps, how these various combinations work, and why they work. And the reason why they work has always been what I've shown in my chess videos. When you can stick with the basics, when you can just, how Nelson Lopez, he's another fabulous YouTuber, you need to watch him. His rating climb series is spectacular. He's so informative. He just kind of talks out loud as he's moving and looking. A lot like Alex and Danyo Naroditsky. They all do that, but like he says, if you just play solid chess, you get all your pieces involved. Now, part of the problem of white, notice black's entire back row is empty except for the king. Now, that's significant. Black won this battle. That's seriously significant because when you look at white, his row is not empty. And he just a moment ago got this guy involved. But those two pieces remain unused the entire game. You can't win against even a marginally knowledgeable chess player if you leave two of your pieces on their home squares and don't use them. You can't win very often. That's the lesson. We just recently saw that, and then he had to lose his queen. That should have happened moves and moves and moves ago, and it should embarrass us all. And this is kind of the mindset, the cheap pop psychology I'm doing on myself in my chess game so that I don't do this, but to leave a rook on your A square, doesn't matter whether you're playing the white pieces or the black pieces, to leave a rook on its home A square should make you blush with shame. See, that rook should have been in here. What a difference it would have made if once he castled, he could have got his rook back over here and this rook over here. What a difference that would have made in this game had that rook been there. There would have been no attack. Even if he had opened up the file, they would have swapped rooks. See the difference? Yeah, so my takeaway from it is development. Of course, you'll hear that every game, but it's necessary because there's people who don't do it as we witnessed here and get every piece in play. Do not leave your A rook home. That would be the lesson. So anyway, wow, man, have I been blowing hot air for an hour and a half or more. Oh, hey, Legend, welcome. Yes, yeah, Legend is saying it. Exactly right. That's what I'm trying to say. You said it so much more succinctly and better. You need to come and make these videos for me, my friend. Yeah. Yeah, well, I agree, John. Naroditsky he's a little beyond all of us, but he's ninth in the world. He's got something to share, man. He's worth trying. He says, you got to move the white king to G2 and move the rook over. Watch this. Thank you, Legend. That is exactly right. To let your opponent dominate an H file like that. Now, and this makes us, gives you a heads up. You got to think, okay, now wait a minute. Why is you remember when no, it wasn't that way. It was that way. You remember when white threatened the black knight back when the rook was here, right? Before he had castled. Why did my opponent leave his knight to be taken? Come on, it's a piece. Why did he do that instead? Man, you need to ask yourself that question. You need to say, okay, wait, something's not quite kosher here. Hold it. He's letting me take his knight? See, this Igor Smirnov, Grandmaster Igor Smirnov, another one of my very favorite chess coaches, YouTubers. To take is a mistake. That's not just a cute little saying. To take is a mistake here. because you improve black's position with the more powerful piece than the lesser. But what else do I have? Exactly. Do you know why you are so desperate that you have to take that knight? Because you left your pieces home. In this case, legend has it. Thank you for pointing that out, my friend. Pop the king up, for Pete's sake, and get the rook over. Now, that's a much better strategy than attacking the knight. Now it's black pawn that's pinned. You see, now you just switch the tables. He's probably not going to take that pawn. On the other hand, he's still got several moves before he can get his rook back over here. So maybe he would do that and go ahead and swap the rooks. Of course, then he wasn't castled yet either at that point in the game. So they would both be, if it was important to him, they would both be trying to scramble to get their rooks back over there. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, my friend. Good job. Good to see you. Okay. Hey, I've been going almost 2 hours, man. And I've shown you several. Let's see, we've done 4 or 5 really good traps. Sensational chess ideas involved in these types of things. They're always so fun to learn. It's a lot of fun to share them with you. So I'm going to call it good. I've got the rest of my day. I'm going to go study some. I've got to go do a little shopping with the wife. Hey, I've got Chinese from last night. Woohoo! I get to go have a good lunch. Yeah, baby. I can't help it. I love Mugu Gai Pan. That's the way it is. So I'm going to head out for now. Thank you for all of your support, and your love, and your help, and your attention. You're the best audience in the world. It's always good to see so many familiar faces. Welcome to all of you new viewers. Thank you for showing up. We always try to get the best information on chess that we know how to, and we like to have a little bit of fun with it too. So, I mean, why not? If you can't laugh a little, and if you can't laugh at yourself a little bit, then you're being too serious, right? But on the other hand, we want to be serious enough to really improve so that we can begin to win. That's what it's all about, having fun in life and improving ourselves. So remember, be good, do well, have fun, smile, make lots of friends, get lots of sleep, and be good citizens of your country and be happy. Because, criminy, nobody likes to be miserable, especially me. So if you need a laugh, come and look at my shorts. I do dumb dad jokes, and they really are dumb. And in fact, they're so dumb that some of them are actually funny. I'm serious. That's what they say. So I will see you guys on the next chess video or the next chess live. Thanks for attending. It's good to see all of you. Have a great day.